Hey class, I just wanted to do a quick review video that you can look at if you feel you need or you want to. It's going to be World War I review. We're going to be looking at World War II over the course of the next couple weeks here, but I just wanted to make sure you remembered the causes for World War I. We'll look at some effects, and then hopefully you'll see some connections leading into World War II. So I won't talk too much about style of fighting and location or battles in this, but more so the political factors leading up to the war. So first one was imperialism, which we talked about this, around 1900, maybe a little before, a little after, but this can be traced back thousands of years. You could take it to our area of the world with the British starting the American colonies. You can look at Spain coming to Mexico. You could look at the French coming to Haiti, whatever it might be. At this time, though, right before World War I, some tension was started with basically these European powers competing with each other to get land. This is Africa. You can see here there's only two countries that were independently ruled, Ethiopia and Liberia at the time. Everything else represented on here, I know you probably can't see the specific areas, but the different colors represent different European powers. You can see the British have a lot of the power here, French up here. Germany in the green, we're going to see that Germany is going to try and get into top of the world power list here at this time. So one way to do that, they felt, was through imperialism. So that's something that countries competed. The idea of imperialism, as we defined in Chapter 9, I believe it was just stronger countries looking to get something from weaker areas. So whether it be resources, whether it be military advantages, or just that belief in cultural superiority that we'll take a look at maybe with nationalism as cause 3. But so that's imperialism. Next up is militarism. So basically with this, you're going to have these countries just trying to boost their military further and further. And here you can see a picture of tanks and soldiers. So the idea of just developing different weapons, whether it's the tank, the machine gun, poison gas, that could be militarism. Whether it's training your soldiers or moving your soldiers to an area where they may be doing fighting, where Germany and France, they were border countries. So moving your German soldiers towards the French border can be considered militarism. So that's something when you see that your neighbors or enemies are building up their militaries, that leads the other countries to do the same. They don't want to be left behind, especially when we have a potential conflict on the horizon. So that's militarism here. You can see the tanks, soldiers, etc. So third cause is nationalism. And I mentioned this with that, belief in cultural superiority from the imperialism. But it's just that idea that your country, it's like taking patriotism to a whole new level. Like here you can see this political cartoon from, looks like the Bangkok Post. This guy here, follow me, he says, as he's leading his, countrymen over a cliff, and they're just blindly following him. So basically this is something we can look at as one of the reasons also these countries were willing to jump into war. Just that belief that, their country deserves whatever it can get, and they wanted everything. So that's one of the causes here that we'll see with nationalism. These countries here saying, hey, why can't we take over these parts of the world or other parts of the world? So that was connected to nationalism. So I like this political cartoon because it just shows the country blindly following whatever these leaders might say. And this we'll look at this with World War II, Benito Mussolini in Italy with fascism, Adolf Hitler, of course, in Germany, just getting their total control and getting their country to follow them. The fourth cause here are alliances. So basically just people teaming up together. And this can be dangerous. It can be a good thing, but it can also turn a small conflict into a huge war. So you can see here that these were just some of the alliances or friendships that were present before World War I. So you got some countries that stuck with their alliances, some kind of shift around, but this is the basic setup here. So this is going to be the reason it goes from a small conflict between maybe Serbia and Austria-Hungary into this full-scale world war. So we have those four causes, but that alone, that's enough for tension, but not enough to just automatically start a war. So what I want you to remember here, we talked about the spark, so kind of like what lit the fuse, and this spark was the assassination of Austria-Hungary's Archduke. So kind of like a prince, he was the heir to the throne, it says here in the New York Times, so basically he was about to be the leader, he was going to take over as leader of Austria-Hungary. But while he was in Sarajevo, you can see here, this is Gavrilo Princip, you don't need to remember his name, but he, opposing Austria-Hungary, wants just kind of this free state, just opposed to, I'll just leave it at opposed to Austria-Hungary and their kind of regional dominance. He assassinates the Archduke, and that is that, I don't want to say small conflict there, but between these two countries here of Serbia and Austria-Hungary that bring these in for World War I. So that's where we have oops, I don't want that, sorry. So that's where we get the beginning of the war. So that's where you have Serbia, the Austria-Hungary looks to blame Serbia for this assassination. So right there you have these two nations that are fighting. But with Russia and Serbia having an alliance, that means Russia will jump in and fight Austria-Hungary as well. Of course, Germany has a partnership or an alliance with Austria-Hungary, so they're going to team up with them, which means they're fighting against Russia. And now, same time, France has an alliance with Russia, as does Great Britain, and they're going to look to fight Germany and France. So this is the kind of the major European powers here. Obviously there are others involved, but when we look at this, the Central Powers, Germany and Austria-Hungary, are the main ones we talked about. The Allied forces here, we got Great Britain, France, Russia. Now Russia will have a revolution in 1917, so they're going to stick around for a little while. There's other reasons that the Russian Revolution happened, but World War I was a catalyst for kind of change in Russia. We'll talk about that later, probably when we get to the Cold War, and we'll give a brief history of Russia and the Soviet Union. So let's see what else we got here. So those were some quick causes. Now effects, basically, end of the war, we have over 10 million soldiers die, and that's not including diseases like influenza and so on, so military deaths. European countries are devastated. So a lot of the fighting was here in France along the Western Front, but not just like the actual country or farmland is devastated, but economically these countries are going to be devastated. The Russian Revolution, as I said, will take place. Kind of blends in some separate topics, but we'll get to that as well. Now the Treaty of Versailles is the famous peace treaty that we like to link with World War II, because basically Germany is going to have to accept full blame for World War I. They're going to lose land to some of their neighboring countries. They're going to have to scale down their military, and they're also going to have to pay some financial fines or reparations for war. So because of these things, Germany is even more devastated than their neighbors and is, I guess you could say, quite resentful. So that resentment will be a big reason for World War II, and that's kind of the whole reason I'm making this review, so that we can see Germany, one of the reasons why they look to turn back into an aggressor here with World War II. So here's a map, though, speaking of the Treaty of Versailles. This is the European continent after the treaty, You can see some countries are new here. We have Yugoslavia, Austria, and Hungary are split up. They wanted to split up a lot of empires at this time. Turkey was the Ottoman Empire. Now you can see the nation of Turkey. You see Poland is on here. And again, USSR, that's where the Russian Revolution happens. And they become USSR, the Soviet Union, which we'll talk about later. Don't get too worried about that right now. So Czechoslovakia as well. So you'll see a lot of different changes just on the map, but also German land, military, and financial punishments, which lead to resentment, and that is kind of the connection I want you to know between World War I and World War II. So feel free to ask any questions. I know I tried to go through this on one take, so if I missed anything, please feel free to ask. I hope it was understandable, but remember that we're looking for just connections between World War I and World War II.